Okay, welcome back to Thirst for Knowledge.
Welcome back.
Today we are talking about
Liqueurs.
yes, and that's the fancy French spelling, not liquors.
Yes, we should call this Liqueurs Part 2.
We
We
should.
did a whole episode about liqueurs, and while we were drinking liqueurs, talk about liqueurs, we forgot to push record.
Yeah.
So
Sometimes
this
that
is a
happens.
do-over.
Do-over. Take two.
Take two.
So, what are you drinking, Ben?
Last time I made myself an Irish coffee, but today I am having a Midori Sour.
And that is an awesome shade of green.
It is beautiful, and when you pour it, the first thing you pour in is the Midori, and it's a much brighter and translucent, or transparent rather, green. And then as you start adding vodka and some lemon juice, it seems to get a little more cloudy, and it has almost an absinthe kind of look to it,
Nice.
but it smells and tastes much, much better than the absinthe. And how about you? What are we drinking?
We're drinking Love and Murder.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's
And
a story in that one.
I don't know what the story of the drink is, but it has two liqueurs in it, Campari and Chartreuse. It's also the first cocktail I've made where you put salt in the cocktail. Like you make a saline solution and put a few drops in it. You make a simple syrup. It's got this awesome balance of flavors too. It's a good cocktail.
All right.
Yeah. So liqueurs. Tell me, Ben, what is a liqueur? How is it different?
A liqueur is, it's an interesting additive to an alcoholic drink. It's not your primary ingredient usually. It's going to add flavor. It's going to add sweetness. It's going to add color to whatever spirits you're drinking. It's made by infusing a spirit like vodka, rum, or something with just a bunch of other flavors, usually fruits, herbs, spices, nuts, cream even, if you want to make yourself a nice Irish cream for your coffee. Creamy. And they're usually very sugary or very syrupy.
Yes.
And they're absolutely just fun to have, and they taste really yummy.
Yeah, and I love the range of flavor options for liqueurs. Can look if we make liqueur into a verb, you can liqueur almost anything. Speaking of which, I've seen this on Instagram. Yeah, I've seen this on Instagram. Someone who takes like crazy things like Peeps and makes alcohol out of it. So the EU has a definition that liqueurs are a spirit drink with at least 100 grams per liter of sugar and a minimum alcohol content of 15% ABV. So like you said, pretty high in the sugar. Some are, higher in the alcohol than the others. And I found that it was originally a way to preserve spices, fruits, and herbs, like for medicines.
Yeah,
Ben, why don't you hit us with some history?
some of the oldest liqueurs go back as far as ancient Egypt and Greece, where people were infusing basic wines or other simple alcoholic beverages with whatever they could find, just fruits and other herbs that they could find, and started making different types of sweeter drinks. And it was by the 13th century that European monks were experimenting.
Monks.
Those monks, quiet but thirsty. They created what we might recognize today as the first true liqueurs of Chartreuse and Benedictine and Carmelite monks. They experimented with a variety of herbs, spices. They kept ledgers, they kept measurements, and they really made a science out of making liqueurs. Now we have Chartreuse and Benedictine liqueurs to this day that are still being used.
Yeah, and so I came across that there are three kind of primary methods for making a liqueur. One of which is infusion, like you said. Basically, it's like making tea. Just seep whatever you want in some alcohol. I've experimented with this. I made my own limoncello one time. It was okay, I would say. And then you can percolate it, like you percolate your coffee. And this is apparently best for plant-based flavorings like herbs. And then you can distill it. And so you seep the spirit for a few hours and then do a distillation after. And this is apparently best for flavors that are less heat sensitive, because distillation is a hot process. So spices, roots, citrus peels, things like that. So, and then the product at the end is mixed with water and syrup and sometimes coloring, which I suspect is in the Midori, is added.
There's nothing natural about the color of Midori.
And there's a lot
Looks
of
like
different...
something out of Star Trek, to be honest with you.
It does. It's cool. I like it. Romulan ale. Is that bright blue?
Romulan ale. It's exactly where I was going. Well done. Yes. I'm having a Romulan ale sour.
So there's a ton of different types of liqueurs, right? So you have the cream liqueurs that you referenced. You have aperitifs, which are openers, and these are usually lower proof and meant to be taken before the meal to stimulate the gastric juices. And then the digestifs, which are higher proof and taken after the meal to help everything digest properly. Although there's no scientific evidence that it actually does that.
I knew about the beginning ones and the complementary things, but not the digestifs.
Yeah, so it'll be something like port wine or the dessert wines that are really heavy, fortified, kind of sweet. But there are digestif liqueurs too. The French are particularly fond. Armagnac.
I do like a good port. I do like a
good port. Yeah. And most of them are a little bit bitter. So like Campari, Aperol, they have a little bit, and that's from quinine, which we've talked about before. Yes. And then there's also aromatized wines. So these are wines fortified with grain or grape spirit. And it's so processed that the base wine is not super detectable in the finished product. And I didn't know this, but vermouth is wine that is mixed with mistel, which is sweet grape juice, and flavored with herbs, roots, sparks, flowers, etc.
Did not know that at all.
Me either. The things we learn. I feel like it should be we drink and we learn things. Because like most of this we don't really know ahead of time. I know. We're how many episodes in and I just came up with our tagline. So what else did you find out about liqueurs?
Liqueurs are crazy. They have an incredible evolutionary steps that go back to all sorts of medieval origins in the 12th and 13th centuries. People credit liqueurs being used as medical tonics, and again, monasteries made huge practices in making herbal infusions that were specific for different ailments. They were kind of making all sorts of they're just churning out specific tonics for specific diseases, illnesses, and stuff. The spread of distillation started in the Middle East, of all things,
cool,
to spread out into Europe, which gave way to higher proof spirits, improved flavors, improved colors, and apparently more effective medicinal tonics. I guess maybe actually really helped, or it was just quite the trend, I guess. And then Carthusian monks, here we go again, this time in France, producing chartreuse. And it's one of the oldest liquors still made to this day, using an original recipe which has 130 herbs. And I believe it's a very well-kept secret as to which 130.
The lore is that only 3 monks at any given time know the exact herbal mixture.
That's right.
I don't know if that's true or not, but it's a good story.
I want to believe it.
Yeah, the recipe was given to them in 1605 by Francois Annibal d'Estrées, who was a military man and diplomat during the reign of Louis XIV. And the manuscript called for the recipe for an elixir of long life. So there you go. Drink chartreuse. So I think I posed this question to you last time. Which came first, the color or the drink?
Well, I want to say the drink.
Yeah, the drink, for sure. So the color came from, the color of chartreuse, I think, was actually this greenish yellow. I don't know if today it's made naturally or not, but that was first. And then people took that and turned it into a color for fabrics and things like that. So that was pretty cool. I like chartreuse as a liqueur. And there's 2 types. There's green and yellow. So green chartreuse is the stronger of the 2. And it contains flavors such as cinnamon, mace, lemon balm, dried hyssop, peppermint thyme, arnica flowers, angelica roots. Yellow chartreuse is 86 proof as opposed to the 110 proof of green chartreuse. It's milder and sweeter. And has a similar profile of herbs and plants, but apparently with the addition of cardamom seeds and suctrine aloes, which I have no idea what those are.
I don't know. Suctrine aloe.
Yeah. Okay, so it's an aloe from Yemen. Socotrine aloe, excuse me. Oh, it's pretty. Orange flowers. It says it's a bitter aloe, and it has important pharmaceutical and medicinal properties. That's cool.
I think flowers are pretty.
Yes. Same. Just don't ask me what flower I'm looking at.
I tried with science actually to make a weekly quiz type of thing where I would show part of a flower, and over the course of a day I'd show you more and more and more. You try to tell me what flower it is. And I spurred so much argument and fighting online because I wasn't getting the specific name for this particular species of whatever.
Yeah.
There are a lot of flower, I'm going to say this nicely, enthusiasts.
Yes. I said previously that several of the liqueurs are bitter. So it turns out that men and women taste bitter differently.
Yes.
Yeah. So the journal Nutrients published in 2023 a paper that looked at the sex differences in the ability to taste bitterness. And the ability to taste bitterness is thought to be a defense mechanism against toxins. Makes sense. The receptors for bitter taste are taste-2 receptors and are of the subfamily of G protein coupled receptors. This is the largest and most diverse set of membrane receptors in eukaryotes. So organisms that have a membrane-bound nucleus in their cell that contains their DNA. It's not just like willy-nilly floating all over the place. So that's us, we're eukaryotes. These G protein coupled receptors are like, they go through the membrane and they act as like a toll gate for messages to go into the cell. And these messages can be light, energy, peptides, lipids, sugars, proteins, a whole manner of things. Side note, about a third to a half of all marketed drugs act by binding one of these receptors. They interact with G proteins. That's why they're called G protein coupled. Sometimes scientists are very creative. Sometimes they're very obvious with how they name things. And what happens is the binding of something to this receptor triggers an interaction between that receptor and a nearby G protein. And the G protein, it allows the G protein to make kind of an energy conversion. It's a GTP to GDP, so it's a guanosine triphosphate to a guanosine diphosphate, which is an energy flip in the cell. So essentially what happens is the binding and unbinding of these two molecules changes the G protein and it allows it to interact with other membrane proteins, and then you're perpetuating the external signal from outside to inside the cell. It's like a little chain reaction that happens.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are the receptors that are responsible for bitter taste. These authors want to look and see if men and women perceive bitter differently, because this could have applications in medicine, right? People's ability or their desire to take a specific medicine, but if it's too bitter, right? So they had 231 participants and they evaluated the bitter intensity rating of quinine, and then evaluated the sensory perception, the odor and the taste of a commercial Italian Amaro, which is a large category of liqueurs. The results were that women perceived bitter taste, as well as sweet, salt, and total taste, significantly more intensely than men. And they perceived the odor of the Amaro more intensely than men. And some were able to discriminate aroma components more intensely than the men. Basically, women are just a little more sensitive, if you will, to bitter flavors and aromas. But a fun fact about bitterness is that the time necessary for bitterness perception in the mouth is greater than for any of the other tastes.
Time necessary to process bitter?
Yeah.
I can taste sweet. I can taste sour.
Taste salt.
Quicker.
Yeah. Bitter takes longer. I
I'm
thought that was kind of cool.
Drinking and learning.
Yeah. Any other fun liqueur facts? Because I got another science.
Well, going back to what came first, the drink or the color? What came first? The bitter or the sweet?
Liqueurs?
Mm-hmm.
Probably bitter.
But in the 16th century, Italian liqueurs became the center of where bitters came from. And after that popularity came, people started wanting something sweeter. So towards the end of the 17th century and into the 18th century, people were experimenting with adding sugars to liquor recipes to kind of mask the bitterness. They didn't try to take the bitterness out. It was more left in, and the game was, how much sugar do we need to add to mask the bitter? Take it out. And so they became way more popular as dessert drinks at this time, especially towards the end of the 18th century.
Yeah. I feel like you would have had to wait for the sugar trade to be substantial enough to get the really sweet ones, right?
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I didn't even think about that.
If you're talking about the monk-made liqueurs.
Yeah, but it's also kind of silly. I mean, liquors are being made, like Amari, bitter on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of trying to make a sweet one on purpose, they're just adding sweetness to the bitter.
I have to say,
why not just start a new recipe?
I appreciate bitter drinks more as I get older, and that has to do with a little bit of your taste buds kind of fading in their sensitivities. Like, older people tend to like spicier food. For example, I never would be a fan of Negroni. Now I'm like, oh yeah, definitely Bring it on.
I'm similar, like some, not all, some rye whiskeys. I did not like them at all when I was younger. There's just like a glass of pain burning its way down my throat, and I didn't care for it. Now that I'm older and I know it's coming, I'm like, okay, this one's got a good hit. All right.
Yeah.
Well done, you.
Going to reference back to the beginning of the episode when he said you can liquor anything. So proof of that is...
Here we go. This is going to be exhausting. This is going to be awesome.
An article published in Food Technology and Biotechnology. Authors looked at making novel liqueurs from juice industry waste. So pumice is the byproduct of juice production and contains skins, pulp, seeds, and the stalks of the fruit.
Okay.
The phenolic compounds are mainly found in the fruit skins, and they're a good source of antioxidants and all that's left behind when you make juice, which is why nutritionists are usually pretty keen on you. Like, if you're going to make a smoothie, like put the whole fruit in there, not just the juice. This team looked at apple, beetroot, and something called a chokeberry, which is in the same family as elderberries. The fruit apparently is like a chokeberry is too astringent to eat raw, but I guess the juice is quite nice. Okay. So to make the liqueurs, leftover mashings from the juice was macerated in water alcohol mixture. The extracts were decanted and filtered and transferred to another tank to add sugar and water. Citric acid was added for that sweetness sour balance, and glycerol as a body enhancer. And the taste testing showed that apple and chokeberry made a good liqueur on their own, while beetroot had to be mixed because, it's beets.
That's beetroot.
Very earthy flavor. The phenolic content and antioxidant activity in all the liqueurs, the chokeberry was the highest of all of those. So very high antioxidants in chokeberries. Okay. Basically, you can take fruit juice waste and make liqueur out of it. I think it's a good form of recycling.
But it's an excellent form of recycling. And also, I never really thought to make a smoothie with just throwing a whole orange in there, but I'm absolutely going to try it this week.
Yeah, maybe without the peel.
Okay.
The peels are a little intense. Yeah. But like
That's true.
When I make smoothies, like all the strawberries just go in the rest, like everything just banana. Well, I don't like bananas, so I don't put banana in mine. Anything else on liqueurs?
I think one of my favorite things about liqueurs is how popular they were during Prohibition. In the 1920s, there was a huge cocktail boom during Prohibition because everybody was trying to find any way they could to take any loophole they could find around the Prohibition rules. And liqueurs were one of the most biggest ways to do it because they're so colorful and so flavorful, and they can be made with very low alcohol levels. And so people were downing liqueur drinks and mixed drinks to kind of sidestep Prohibition. And that's where we got the margarita, triple sec, White Russian, which is basically they're making a coffee, and other similar cocktails. I'm having a smoothie. I'm having a drink. I'm having a coffee. This is fine. So thank you, Prohibition, for giving us this rainbow, right? Literally, because of the colors. Yes. Rainbow of cocktails.
That's awesome. I think this is another running theme in the podcast. Prohibition. Talked about it quite a bit. We got to start writing these down.
That's actually a good idea for an episode all itself. All the fun things people did just to get around Prohibition.
Yes. Yeah. All right. I think that's all I've got for liqueurs.
I think we're good. I'm going to finish my story.
Nice.
And yeah.
Well, that's been another episode of Thirst for Knowledge. Cheers. And as always, drink and science responsibly.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.